6:35. Michael, as chair, would you like to start the meeting?
Yeah, let's start the meeting.
So we'll need a roll call attendance, so just state your name for the record.
Michael Nordstrom. Here.
Karen England here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Let me work on the camera situation.
So Coy, state your name for the record.
It's Coy Wing.
Awesome. And we have here as an attendee, Claire Reynolds, and myself, Leah Emerson. So with that said, Michael, do you want to kick us off with a brief on how last night went?
Sure. So yeah, so we had select board office hours last night with the intention of going over priorities for the upcoming year, particularly in anticipation of Leah going full time. But we need to prioritize anyway. And the goal would be to get aligned, with the select board, so we're not going rogue. That everybody's in alignment on what we're working on, which is a great idea to do. So I was happy to do that. And then Karen was there, and I was there, and Leah was there, and Claire, and the chair, Kathy Cook, and Alfred Bennington was there also, and so we had two people on the select board, but it immediately got into the one-stop application, which of course is a big priority for us, but as you all know, we're a contributor to this, but we're not the final decision maker on this process, because we have to get inputs from the rest of the groups. But so we Leah and Claire particularly going to really express some of the things that we're going to need to have a successful application, and we need some we need some information from some of the other committees. We do need to get an expression of interest in. I think it's beginning of February, and then the next step is the one-stop application for the corridor study for Route 9. They're totally on board with going forward with getting this application in, understanding that this is this is the funding that we need to get a study done, and then for that to become really a blueprint and a map for all of the zoning and other activities that need to take place for the various areas. I don't know if you ever had a chance to look at the downtown study that was done. I mean, it would be a different type of study, but it's I thought it was very enlightening. That just to see, again, this was a number of years ago when downtown was the big emphasis of. That was a good study. Really had the consultants went through and expressed what could be, and provided a potential map to what are the activities that would really help improve that area. And we certainly as a town didn't do everything that they said, but it's I thought that provided a good map. So that was like the idea to, if we get this corridor study, we can get the town behind us on what needs to take place, because that is a key factor in the zoning updates, and gets everybody to start getting to work and having and getting tasks. So so there's obstacles to getting it all done. I also we're talking about bringing in talking to Rob Anderson, since he's really an expert at that whole thing, and he was such an advocate of getting that study done. I know Kathy wanted to reach out to him directly on what it would take. There's discussion about do we need additional resources to put this application in, or can we do it with existing resources? So all those different things. So I think there's a little bit of homework to do, as far as the next steps But they're totally on board with doing it. They're just a little confused about, what needs to happen. So, feel free, Leah or Clara, if you have any additional feedback or Karen.
Sure. I mean, I'll just interject that Andrew had wanted to take up the charge, Andrew Dennington, as the co-chair of the select board, of kind of running interference and interfacing with the planning board on trying to coordinate this effort, since, the main thing that they want to get out of this is recommendations for zoning updates. But the corridor study, is going to take a little bit of a longer term view of some improvements that could be made along our stretch of Route 9. And so it's going to look at vacancy, it'll look at traffic, things that could be improved for safety. And so the zoning will be a very significant and large part of that. So we're kind of looking at those recommendations in a potential study as a roadmap, like Michael said, for sort of mid to longer term changes. And in the interim, we're talking about putting some things on the next town meeting warrant in the spring, like updating and expanding some of the uses in the industrial park district. I know that the planning board has to introduce the ADU provisions now that those are going to be legal statewide beginning in February, and they just need to get that to be integrated with the town's dimensional requirements in the residential zoning districts. And I think the other thing that the building commissioner, Chris Lund, who's also our zoning enforcement officer, he wants to look at improving some of our parking requirements along Route 9. So those are the things that are being discussed sort of in the short term. So we need to think of this as short term, midterm, and longer term improvements that we can make to the zoning bylaw with updates. But, because we have to go to town meeting, requires a 2/3 majority vote in favor of any zoning changes. We're going to try to introduce that incrementally for the foreseeable future at future town meeting warrants. So that's kind of the plan. No one is talking about not pursuing the corridor study for Route 9. It's absolutely probably on the top of our list of priorities, which we'll get into tonight. In the interim, Andrew, Vanessa Hale, Mark Purple, and myself are going to be getting together. It was supposed to be on the 19th on a Tuesday to discuss the one-stop. And we're going to have to punt that to the 22nd to accommodate Andrew's work schedule. But at any rate, I'll just update you on that. We did not get the wayfinding grant award for $25,000 under the one-stop with the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative. There's 12 grant programs under the one-stop. The Massachusetts Downtown Initiative is one of them. It's the second to the smallest grant program at $600,000. And there were 24 awards of $25,000 each. And among those 24 awards, only 2 received an award for a wayfinding study, and that went to Lynn and it went to Pittsfield. And so I have a spreadsheet I can share with you all about the awards for this last grant cycle among all the different programs, if you'd like to look at that at your leisure. It'll help you understand kind of what the state is favoring and prioritizing, and we really need to study that so that we can strategize to put in as complete and as competitive of a grant application as we can for Route 9 for this next year. So let me get the agenda in front of us. Yeah.
So anyway, that was discussed. So the meeting got completely hijacked by the one-stop. One-stop plan, which in a way is good, but in a way is bad. So we didn't get any feedback on any other priorities. So like we gotta kind of just run with it. So we need to establish the priorities ourselves, and I think we all know what some of them are, but it's something we should talk about it. I think, hopefully in this meeting get to it. I don't think we have to be done this meeting. We could probably finish it up next meeting, but we need to my idea would be to make sure that we all understand what the potential priorities are, and if there are any others anything that's missing that we need to consider, and then really try to just rank them as much as possible, just so that as we go into the new year, we're always thinking about those top 3 or 4 priorities. I mean, there's other ongoing business that needs to get done, obviously, on a day-to-day basis, but there's, the priorities. We should be almost all of our tasks, unless they're urgent things that we have to do, really should go around those priorities.
Yeah, and I would also just add that we need to think of the priorities also, how they align with supporting the master plan goals. And certainly the zoning updates are absolutely needed to better align our zoning bylaw with master plan goals so that we can actually get from A to B. And right now there's a bit of a disconnect between our current zoning bylaws and the master plan goals. And unfortunately, that's not really uncommon. That's the case in a lot of places where they have really an outdated zoning bylaw. And then they have either a comprehensive or master plan that, while the goals are very laudable, and they're absolutely worth aspiring to and working toward, you just can't get there until you get the zoning in line with the master plan. So with that said, I guess we'll just kind of circle back on the 9:30 town meeting. I want to thank you all for showing up and for your support and your patience during that process. We got over that particular hump, and so onward and upward. October for me was almost overscheduled. I had a lot of outside meeting and events, including one that was at Holy Cross. It was something that I went to the year prior. That's hosted by the Massachusetts area regional planning agencies. So we're with MAPC, or the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, around Greater Boston. There's 101 communities, and we're one of them that falls under their jurisdiction. And then we have CMRPC, which is just to our west. So Westboro falls under the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Council. And so that's always a good thing to go to. Juan Vega was there with the One Stop. He helps administer that program. At that point, they hadn't made any announcements, but I do have some statistics to share from that if anyone is interested in a little bit more context about where the One Stop's at these days. On the 17th, I did go to the Planning and Economic Development Working Group meeting in person in Maynard, as did Claire. That was also quite interesting. Claire brought up the fact that, Southborough had yet to win a One Stop award, and immediately the planning director in Hudson, who was also in attendance, interjected that you need to get your legislators involved. You need to lobby them. She learned that the hard way. And she had to go all the way to the State House to advocate for some of her grant applications. So that's just sort of an FYI that it's who you know, and we need to cultivate the relationships with some of the people administering the grant applications, as well as, really cultivating our relationships with our state level representatives if we want to be successful. So that was good. On the 22nd, went to the tax classification hearing. Paul Sabelli did a fantastic job. I was able to get his presentation from Lori Esposito, who also does a fabulous job preparing that every year. And I can share those tax statistics so that you guys understand where things stand. The select board did not support a split tax rate classification. So we're still at the single tax classification for residential and commercial, industrial, and personal property class. And again, I'm happy to share a little bit more detail about that in the slides, which I can send you all tomorrow via email. On the 7th of October, the 4th of November, and then upcoming on the 2nd of December, we're having ongoing informal discussions with Chris Lund, the building commissioner, Marguerite Landry, who's kind of taken the lead on this from the select board, Al Hamilton, who's also on the select board, as well as Mimi Luttrell, the chair of the planning board, Karina Quinn, the town planner, Colleen Stansfield as the assistant in the planning department, as well as Laura Davis with the ZBA. And we've been talking about these short-term zoning changes that could be introduced onto the next town meeting warrant. Does anybody hear a little bit of feedback? Yeah, I'm not sure where that's coming from, but I've got my AirPods in, and okay, there it disappeared. Thank you. I think someone maybe needed to mute. So at any rate, we're having these discussions. Chris Lund is going to introduce, like I said, some changes to the parking requirements, which ought to bring some relief to some of the applicants in the commercial zoning districts. We're also talking about expanding the uses in the industrial park district to accommodate some of the needs and uses that people are looking for post-pandemic. And then, of course, the planning board will also need to have ADU provisions on the Springtown meeting warrant. Now, there is a public hearing process that will be required for any of these zoning changes. And the planning board, I did attend their meeting, not this past Monday, but the prior Monday. And they said that that's most likely going to happen in January. So we're going to continue to stay in touch with them and keep an eye on how that's going to unfold. But I'll keep you apprised of those discussions and the status going forward. On the 7th of November, Claire pointed this out, that the Master Plan Implementation Committee had a meeting. Unfortunately, I haven't had time to go back onto the YouTube channel, Southborough Remote Meetings, to tune into that and see if there was anything that we needed to be aware of. I can let Claire interject as to, you know, if there was anything that we needed to take note of. But we have always made our information as far as what we're working on available to the chair of the Master Plan Implementation Committee, and that's Deb DeMaria. She's also on the planning board. And then I did get contacted by a Placer AI rep again, and they wanted to just update me on some of their newer developments and features, and they've got a revised kind of pricing structure. And so she followed up with me last Friday with that information. We met last Thursday via Zoom, and I can share that via email. I just let them know that, look, the price tag wasn't going to work with our budget, but, you know, there's a possibility at some point going forward that we could get some value out of that for some other boards, committees, and departments. And so it's just always good to kind of keep that in mind. One of the things that was presented at Holy Cross was an economic development breakout workshop, and they had a woman there from the Old Colony Planning Council down in the southeast part of the state. And they had a data dashboard, and they had built their data dashboard. I'm trying to think of the platform. Koi, I'm sure you know it. It's, for some reason, it's escaping me, but it's pretty much a standard. And they're an RPA, they're a regional planning agency. So their data dashboard encompasses all of their communities. And they have all of these statistics and data points that, for the purposes of applying for grants, it's really, really helpful and instrumental in being able to fill out more competitive and data-driven grant applications. And increasingly, that's what some of these grantees are looking for. So, I kind of like to keep the door open in talking to folks like Placer AI, because again, we're going to need to start to get as competitive as we can possibly be. And we really need good information to base our grant applications on. So the other thing I want to share with you, I'm going to go into a different screen. Let me know if you can see it. Is that we wanted to do something for Small Business Saturday, which is going to be just after the Thanksgiving holiday, day after Black Friday. And, we've talked about for some time updating a directory. I needed a little bit of help from Claire on that, because she has the ability to convert our DBA spreadsheet that's in Excel format using Access, running a report to come up with a user-friendly directory format. And so we would like to launch this with at least a week in advance of Small Business Saturday. And we met with Beth Mello. I can't remember if that was Friday or Thursday. And Beth Mello will promote this on her blog, mysouthborough.com. And so I had to get a short-term, like 2-year contract for a domain, and it's southborough-edc.com to park this website. It's very, very simple. I'm going to go back to the first page, and I still have to plug in some of the verbiage on a couple of these pages, but I wanted to show you so that you can get an overview of how we would like to sort of support and feature small businesses, or really any business, but particularly our smaller businesses. And we know that not everybody can shop local. You got to go and get provisions in outlying towns, just because there's a lot of things that aren't available necessarily in Southborough. But whenever possible, we like to remind people that our local businesses count on our patronage and support. So this is where the directory will be placed. And again, this will be available in a pop-out window for people to refer to digitally, or they can print out a copy for themselves. We'll try to update this once a year, because that's, when the assessor goes out and updates his list every January, as far as the commercial businesses that they are tracking for tax purposes. This is just encouraging people to leave positive reviews and recommendations if they've had a good experience with the local business. Beth also suggested that I have a section down here that if people need resources for starting a local business, to certainly get in touch with me, and I can direct them and refer them to some resources, or provide whatever resources we have available to them and get them up and running. And then the highlight page is just going to be sort of a rotating page where I go out and I update this once every month or two, of talking to and featuring local businesses. And we don't have the verbiage in here yet, because I need to ask these folks a couple of questions that we can share with people. But if I don't have these little mini interviews completed, I can always not publish this page. It'll still be there. I'll just hide it. And then I can add that as needed going forward. So again, we're going to highlight local businesses, and it'll be sort of on a rotating basis. The services page is really about if people need to connect with transit options. We have a regional transit agency. So a lot of our older folks, they need to get a ride, or they need access to where to get in touch with rideshare services, or people need a ride to the airport, or you simply need to take your car into a shop and have it serviced. That's more or less what we're going to have on this page. Facilities is really about the public and private facilities that are available for any kind of an event, anything from a book club or something quite small to something larger, social gatherings. And we'll have this consolidated and listed on this page. So this is showing the Southborough Community House. Karen is on the board. Are you still on the board for the Southborough Village Society?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So that's probably one of the best out there. It's absolutely fabulous place. And then on the fun page, this is really going to be about local happenings and events because, we promote this not only to people in Southborough, but people in the region. They go to something and maybe they stop in and have a meal somewhere. They're paying meal tax. And so this is just a way to let people know what's going on in Southborough on the local level. This is going to be probably linked into Beth's. She does a really fabulous job keeping up on this stuff, on weekly events and happenings. And so we talked to her about that, about how we could possibly sort of refer people over to her website to stay apprised of goings on. And then the DBA list is for people who maybe are doing business to business marketing, or they need to do some kind of outreach, and they need, rather than the directory, they need access to the actual DBA spreadsheet itself. And so if you click on this, I update this every month. I get the DBA applications from the town clerk's office the beginning of the following month. So for instance, I've updated the spreadsheet through October. And so I will update it through November once I get those applications at the beginning of December from the town clerk's office. And this spreadsheet, if we open it with Google Sheets, which is kind of an easy way for anybody and everybody to access this, and that URL is not going to change. So it's just going to stay parked here. You're able to sort the spreadsheet any way that you need to. So you can sort it by the street. If you want to narrow it down by street, you can sort it by name. So put it in alphabetical order. You can sort it by the expiration date of the DBA certificate itself. You can sort it by category for the business. And so again, this is really just giving people a little bit more utility. If they need to do any outreach, they need to do a mailing, the DBA list is kind of the way to go. The directory is really more or less for people who want to just refer to something that they're looking for locally, and they either want to shop local, get it online, or if it's a brick and mortar shop, they can go there directly. And then we have a little, I don't know if you can see this. I think I showed you some of the marketing materials at a prior meeting. I probably had it linked to some of the things I've been working on. So I went ahead and ordered this. This has the URL on it. And we can place this on businesses around town per their permission, of course. We could go replace some of the shop local, I think, stickers that Marika had put out some years back. This is just more or less an updated version of that. So that's it on that front. I don't know if you have any questions.
Can you share the website address back to us when it's ready, Leah? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not published yet, Coy, but of course, once it goes live and I get that onto the domain that we have, you'll absolutely be the first to know when it goes live.
I think it looks great.
Oh, great. Yeah. Love to, when it's ready, we'll have to spread the address of the
Spread the
website.
word.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing was is Sam Stivers referred me over to a gentleman with Southborough Access Media. And so Doug reached out to me. We spoke on the phone, and he would like to do an interview next Monday for a local access TV channel that some people tune into. And so I'm going to do that at 2 o'clock. If anybody would like to join me or chime in, you're more than welcome to. You know, Southborough Access Media, their studios are over there at Trottier. And so I'll update you on that. Again, you're more than welcome
What's
to
his
join.
what's his like agenda, or what's his kind of focus of what's he going to be?
They
getting
just
to-
wanted to find out a little bit more about, you know, what we've done, what we've worked on, what we're currently working on, and some of the things that we have to look forward to going forward. And so it's just more or less kind of an overview while giving a little bit more specifics about what we've been up to in the near term. Let's see. Again, I think I've already alluded to this. We're going to have a one-stop sort of debriefing on the 22nd with Andrew Dennington, Mark Purple, Vanessa Hale, and myself. I'm not sure if anybody from planning can join, but you know, I would like to keep them included in the conversation about the application for the one-stop for Route 9 and zoning updates, just because we're going to need their help with that application. And I looked at the particular version of that application. It falls under a community planning grant. And there's very specific stuff the state is asking for that we're going to need to get the input of the planning board, as well as, you know, maybe some from town administration as well, to be able to pull that application together. And again, I can link to what that application looks like and what some of the specific things are that they're asking for. You know, I think one of the things that I was suggesting to Kathy and Andrew is that we need to have a master spreadsheet for all grant pursuits for the town. Currently, there is no spreadsheet or list. And so it's just really up to kind of each board, committee, and department. But the issue is when you go to apply for a grant, there's always a section, and there is in the one stop, section 2.16, that asks for progress to date by the town at large. And it's in that section that you have to account for all the town's efforts, sort of on a collective scale, because they want to know what the town's investment has been to date. They want to know what progress the town has made, and you need to be able to tie that in with the ask for any kind of grant application, so that they can see that there's almost a sequence of progression. And I think I was having a hard time putting that over with both Kathy and Andrew to understand the need for that. But it's really, really important for the grant applications that we account for the grant pursuits to date and progress to date from the town at large. And the only way to really manage that is to get a master spreadsheet. So one of the things that I could potentially be working on once I go full time.
So I just have a question. The as far as I just want to get your opinion about this. So as far as the one-stop application, assuming that we can get our act together and get that information from the various sources to populate it, is this something that we're going to be able to do, or you're going to be able to fill this application out, or are we going to need to contract resources to put this application in? What's your thoughts?
Well, this did come up at that PEDWIG meeting. where unfortunately, when we are falling under the Regional Planning Agency of MAPC, because they cover such a huge area, oftentimes their resources go to other communities that are underserved, or their economic justice communities or environmental justice. And, Southborough just doesn't meet a lot of that criteria. So I had approached them last year about assisting us with this very thing. I went over with our liaison at MAPC, the master plan goals, particular around Route 9. And she went back to her internal team to discuss it. That was when I was told that they had already done a corridor analysis of Route 9 way back in 2011. That corridor analysis encompassed Wellesley, Natick, Framingham, and Southborough. And I have that available in the shared folder for anybody that wants to look at it. But the main focus of that study is the build-out analysis at that point in time. Now, 2011 was a very different time pre-pandemic. And so my argument is you might be able to glean something out of that report, but it's old news. And for our purposes, we need to pursue an updated study for current needs post-pandemic. And then subsequently, that also surfaced a study that came out in 2012 that MAPC then undertook at the direction of Southborough's planning board at the time. The planning board was able to get MAPC's assistance under their technical assistance program. And this is what I was trying to get help with last year. And this is also what's now available and open this year, is to get TAP assistance. So TAP stands for Technical Assistance Program. It's funded through the state. It's the district local technical assistance. Each regional planning agency is allocated so much money to help their various member communities. But because our liaison went back to the internal team at MAPC, they said, well, we looked at this in 2011 and 2012, and we don't really want to revisit this exercise. So no help was forthcoming. So at the PEDWIG meeting, I got some people who chimed in that are also MAPC communities and said, yeah, we haven't really gotten a lot of help from MAPC either. One of the people at the meeting, who's a planning director, I won't name them, but she was pretty emphatic that MAPC she considers to be much more of a lobbying and advocacy organization for policy at the state level, and they don't function as most other regional planning agencies do. And so, Westboro is with Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Council. They actively help their member communities fill out grant applications. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get some help with. But if you look at the TAP criteria, you're going to see that that may also be a hard sell with MAPC because of what they're favoring at this time. And I'm happy to share that information. But that window is open, I think, until early December. If we were
Leah,
able
are we assigned to MAPC?
Yeah, we're under MAPC. That's the
Okay,
whole
so
point.
it's just
I
all
wish that
geographic.
I wish that we were under CMRPC
Okay.
because they only have 40 member communities. And so they just tend to have a lot more bandwidth to get involved in helping their member communities pursue these kinds of grant resources and opportunities. MAPC has 101 communities, and they are also sort of set up with these subregions. And the subregion that we're in under MAPC is called the Metro West Regional Collaborative. And Sam Stivers and Mimi Luttrell are the appointed members from Southborough on MWRC. And so I will sit in on those meetings. They're by Zoom for the most part. I try to, I can't make every one, but Sam and Mimi are always usually in attendance. So again, I think we probably have a lot more in common with our Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Council communities because of our size, because of the lack of wastewater, as well as our demographics. But because we don't really have a say in what regional planning agency, we fall under, we have to work with what we've got. And so it hasn't been for lack of effort on my part to lobby them for some assistance. And so in the event we were, able to successfully secure TAP assistance, then no, we wouldn't be paying anything. That's part of the award. And they could potentially help us with this. It's just that I've tried this last year and I don't know if we could make another successful bid this year to get help with the one-stop grant. So yeah, that's kind of where that stands.
Okay, so assuming that we're unsuccessful in that, not that I'm giving up, but it's just assuming that we're unsuccessful, then are we going to need some additional help putting that that application together?
I'm going to ask around and see what resources we could pursue to get
Okay.
some eyeballs on it, mainly just to make sure that we've crossed our T's and dotted our I's. Now, last year, and this was, you'll all remember, much to Rob and Claire's chagrin, we were not given the green light to submit the expression of interest for the Route 9 corridor study or zoning update pursuit. Now, I had already prepared that, and I can run it by everybody, and you can tweak it, refresh it, revise it. But that expression of interest is short, sweet, and to the point. You have a very short character count that can be submitted. That is always, like you said, going to open up in February. I'm thinking that you can submit that, I think, through the end of March. And that's really to solicit initial feedback from the grant reviewing authorities on how to proceed with your application and what grant program it's the best fit for the proposal. So we didn't turn in an EOI for that last year. And then, we obviously weren't green lighted to pursue a grant application. You don't have to submit an EOI, but it's always helpful to just get that initial feedback so that, you're getting their input early on and you're trying to follow their suggestions on putting together the grant application. The grant application, that window usually goes from like May to June. It's usually open about a month. So, if at first we don't succeed, you got to try again. Now, I should have something open on here. I don't know if I have it up. Let me see if I can find this. I'm going to back out, go to EDC. And I'm going to look for just bear with me 1 second. I'm not seeing it. At any rate, it was just a couple slides from Juan Vega's presentation at the State Municipal Partnerships annual meeting at Holy Cross. And it was showing year-over-year statistics on how increasingly competitive the one-stop program has become. So, the amount of money that people are asking for and the number of applications, at this point, it's being far outstripped by what's actually available. So I can share that again. I can send you all a link to a couple of slides. I think the other thing to keep in mind is that there's a lot of neighboring communities between Worcester and Middlesex County that have not received a one-stop grant application. It's not as if Southborough is the only one who hasn't succeeded in securing one of these. Probably the closest is Ashland, Hopkinton, and Northborough have yet to receive a one-stop application. So I know Westboro got a sizable one this last year for their downtown. It was $350,000. I have the spreadsheet. You can see what that was awarded for. It was under the MassWorks program with the one-stop. But again, unless you're willing to get into the details on the one-stop and the particularities, most people are not going to be able to understand or contextualize these awards, who gets them, who doesn't, people who've gotten multiple awards. On the spreadsheet that I put together, the towns and cities that had gotten more than one award are emboldened. Those cities and towns that got 5 or more are emboldened and italicized. And, a lot of these folks are repeat awardees. So again, this kind of maybe goes back to the idea that we need to do a little bit of lobbying on Southborough's behalf.
The towns like, Leah, the
yeah,
towns like
go ahead.
Ashland or Hopkinton that have not received one, what's up?
Mhm.
Do they always apply, or just they kind of, do you know if they don't even?
I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily be privy to what they applied for, but
Okay.
there's
I wasn't sure if it was a
map-
lack of getting it or a lack of applying.
Oh, I'm sure that most
towns
cities and towns have probably at least applied once
Okay.
since the one-stop has been introduced. And I think that started back in FY22. So technically it would have been 2021 when it was launched.
Okay.
And then, you've got what, FY22, 23, 24. This was FY25. So this is year 4 that they've had the one-stop in place. And what we'll be applying for would be for FY26. When you apply next year, the award is granted in the fall. They make the announcement usually between October and November. And then, you would be getting the monies, the award, and have to dispense it starting in FY26. I may have to turn my video off momentarily and go grab my charging cord, but no need to stop on my account. I think the next thing on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes. And what I'm going to suggest is that someone make a motion to approve the July, August, and September 2024 EDC draft meeting minutes, as long as you all have had a chance to review them. And unless you have some changes you want made.
I move to approve the July, August, September, or was it June as well? I'm sorry.
No, it's just July through
Yeah.
September. We already approved June.
We approach June. Okay. I make a motion to approve July, August, and September minutes.
I second.
I'm third.
Okay, roll call.
Oh,
Just
Karen.
say
Oh,
aye.
aye, Karen Engel.
I'm Michael Nordstrom.
Great. Okay, and then Claire, we're going to hand it over to you. You want to answer any questions about the invoice? Did anybody have a chance to look at that?
I took a look at it. Looked fine to me. Came under the 1,000. I think it was 950. Wasn't right? Wasn't that what it was billed or something?
Is it?
Claire, yeah, he's just asking if the billing was at 950. Hello. For the invoice.
It was what?
How much was your invoice?
925.
$925, okay.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
original amount was 1,000, and that's what it came down to.
Yeah, it looked good to me, and you know, just I want to also just say, you know, it was really really well done. You know, not just not just for the town meeting, which was obviously the urgent thing that we needed to do, but the just as a historical document. I know it's a lot of work to get all that historical information into into one document that we can now reference going forward, and
Yep.
it's also something that we could use for our priorities, and I just really feel like it helped get us organized too. So, in my opinion, it was as well worth the money.
Great,
Thank
thanks,
you.
guys.
So the question is do we need to actually have them approve that, Claire? As a roll call?
There was a motion that was done in September to approve up to $1,000.
Okay.
This came in under it. The only reason that I provided this was I just wanted to make sure everybody understood, what the work that got done. And it's just kind of a good idea to document, so that whoever might have questions, understand what's going on. So, is there a need for a motion? I don't think so. If you want to do it
Right.
so that if you have a question from the town accountant, which comes up from time to time, it's up to you.
I mean, if one of you want to make a motion just as a formality to approve her invoice.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, a formality.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the invoice that Claire provided for $925.
I second.
A third.
All right, thank you very much. Now, next order of business is the budget discussion
Thanks,
and
guys.
approval. Thank you, Claire. Thanks so much for your help. It's absolutely crucial. I'm going to go back into sharing my screen.
Yes, Sandy cannot. Molly is a maybe later.
And we're going to look at our handy dandy budget.
Diane, I think.
Oh, this is the grant award spreadsheet. But that's okay. Let's give it a second. Our budget is here. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Yeah, if you can make it a little bit bigger, it'd be helpful.
Sure. Okay, how's that? Well, I'm too zoomed in.
Yep.
Okay. So I understand that the salary for the full-time position has yet to be set by the personnel board. I have not been contacted or had anyone discuss this with me at the townhouse. So I have no idea what I'm signing up for. But I think that meeting is supposed to happen in, I don't know, the next week or to 10 days. So the reason that I have that figure grade out is because I was told by town accounting that it's subject to change. So I don't know. The only thing we can really make a decision on is based on prior year expenditures in each one of these other categories to be able to carry those over, and we can kind of do a line item by line item. I'll just kick it off by saying that the printing services at least thus far, I'm gonna have to go back into a different tab. I think I had it updated on the FY25 tab of what I have actually spent. And what we have remaining is $378 of the $500 allocated for printing services. And based on the fact that we need to increase our visibility, we're going to need to get a few more printed marketing materials. And so I don't necessarily recommend that we reduce that amount. I think we can probably spend every bit of that $500 by next June. So for the year of FY26, beginning next July, that's what we're here to discuss and make some projections on and more or less approve. It's entirely up to you guys, but that's kind of where things stand with the printing, is that at this point, we need to produce some materials. I had some thank you notes, some notes of congratulations that I want pre-printed to send to businesses as the need arises. And I haven't ordered those yet. I need to get some clearance from people, to use their image or their photograph before I do that. But yeah, we have, like I said, I haven't spent a huge amount of the $500. We have $378 left, but I think we probably can spend the majority of that down by next June. Any thoughts?
How good?
Yeah, I'm in favor.
Yeah.
I'd be in favor of keeping it and, increasing the visibility and adding, if we can use it for any marketing, like you said.
Okay.
I liked
So-
those thank you notes too.
Oh, good. I'm glad you got to look at those. Yeah, I really would like to get those produced so that I can start sending those out. The other contracted services, I can't really speak to anything except last year. But I'm sure in like FY23 and years prior, they're using some of that for the efforts downtown and grant match funds and the like. Now for FY25, we still have 9,354. So that's money remaining. Whereas the columns to the left are actual money spent. So that's the difference there, is we have 9,354 remaining under other contracted services, which is $10,000 typically. But everything that's grayed out to the left was actual money spent for that budget year. So last year, we had paid Lombardo Associates for the wastewater management action plan. And one of the spends was the Planetizen subscription. It's very hard for me to say, could we use some of that money to hire somebody to help with the grant? That's a possibility. We have always typically $10,000 set aside for these services. Now, we don't want to spend every bit of that on a grant consultant, but, a modest, reasonable amount. So do we want to keep that at that level in the ask for FY26? I guess that's the question. Or do we think we can get away with reducing it? Now, under the other contracted services are also some incidentals like the software that I need, either the Constant Contact. I use Pixlr, which is an Autodesk program for my photo editing. For more expanded graphic capabilities, I've been turned on to Affinity Creative Suite rather than Adobe. Adobe is very expensive. I never really wanted to pursue that. And so we can get Affinity at a much cheaper price point. I have not purchased it, but I've got that sort of scoped out. If I
Do you have any
need-
idea roughly how much that you might need for subscriptions this coming year?
So I have that under
How fun would it be though if we could?
the
Oh,
software. So
nice.
there's that's the figures. So the Pixlr I've already got, that was only 5310 for the year.
Mhm.
The Otter AI, which is helping us with our minutes as we speak, was $99.99 for the year. I absolutely have to have that for transcription. Constant Contact, we aren't due to renew that until December. I'm going to look into maybe an alternative and see if I can get a lower price point with a similar platform. But that's why that's grayed out, because that hasn't actually, we haven't been billed for that yet. We're still under our current subscription. And then again, I priced out the Affinity Creative Suite, and that's only $164.99 for the year versus at least $600 for Adobe. And I never did pursue Adobe this last year, and somehow I got by just fine. And then the Squarespace domain for the directory website was only $34 for 2 years to register that domain. And so that comes to the $646.08 if we also include the Constant Contact and the Affinity Creative Suite. If we're able to reduce those, or maybe I don't get the Affinity Creative Suite, we can reduce this figure even further, but that's what that looks like. If we're looking at dues and memberships and subscriptions, I mean, Worcester Business Journal is essential, and I've got to get that invoice paid. I just got a bill from them. It's $84 for the year, but money well spent. $4.95 Metro West partnership, we just paid that this last month, but it's effective on the 1st of December. So, you know, we're still current with them. And again, they do so much good work and advocacy that, you know, that's also, I think, pretty essential to stay current with them and attend their meetings whenever possible. The Corridor 9 $4.95 Chamber, I think I paid that. That was back in June. So we won't have that due until around that time next year. But, you know, again, very active and robust regional chamber of commerce, probably the largest one in the area. The only other one I might consider would be the one over in Framingham, which is the Metro West Chamber of Commerce. But I can get you a figure on that. I didn't have it entered in here, but currently under these three things, that's at $974.
All right, so yeah, go back to this. So,
So that might be about $2,000 between the software and the dues. Just was about 2,000 if you did everything under the software. So
It would probably about 1,500, yeah.
okay, I was
Or
thinking if you
15
did
or
everything under the
16.
software, that was almost just over 1,000, and then your dues were 1,000. So
Well,
Just
it was
thinking-
about, it was a little about 600 on the software.
oh yeah, I was thinking if you were going to add those other ones too in that you
Yeah.
Worst case
that's
scenario.
all, that's all inclusive of that. Mhm.
okay. Well
and
then,
we had a bunch of data that was looking at that Coy was analyzing a number of months ago. Do we need to do anything with software there?
Well, that was with the Municipal Technology Committee, and that was really him looking at the data from their community satisfaction survey. And I want to say that was under SurveyMonkey, and
That's already
that's
paid for.
actually, yeah,
Yeah.
that's purchased by that committee
Yeah.
under their budget.
Okay.
Leah, if we looking at the other contracted services, if we, what is the likelihood that we need support with the one-stop grant that you think for this year? Do we need to wait until we get the express of interest feedback? Did that, when we got that feedback from One Stop, do we still have enough time to make that decisions to increase the budget, or we don't? Like I'm clueless on the timeline, so I'm trying to map
Oh,
it out.
yeah,
like that.
the budget is actually due, I want to say at the end of the first week of December
First week of December, okay.
Then I say we,
for FY
Yeah, add it.
26, yeah.
then it's probably safe to make sure we have some money allocated in case we don't have to spend it.
I mean, with me going full-time, you may be able to reduce it. So you could reduce it down to say, I don't know, $7,500, or you could maybe, you want to
Instead of
reduce it further
10,000?
to, instead of 10,
Okay.
because, you know, really you've got that built in because I have been half-time.
True.
And, you know, just like Claire has proven,
Yeah,
there's things that come up that we need this extra help and support on. And, you know, I would
Yeah, I
encourage
don't want to
you
get rid of it.
to
totally.
consider, you know, putting a little bit of money aside that if we need to contract with Claire for some
Mhm.
kind of special project or assistance.
So, you
And
know, so I would,
that's what that would fall under.
so, you know, the one thing, you know, I know there's one side of it to say, well, you know, Leah's going to go full time. So, you know, maybe you can reduce it. But I would actually think maybe the opposite, because it's going to generate more activity. And therefore, more activity means, you know, more things that we may need to be doing or that we couldn't even get to before. And so I wouldn't really reduce it, you know, I might, you know, other than maybe we need to move a little bit of the money, maybe rather than 10,000, move it down to 9,000, and move, you know, the software up to 1,000 or something like that, just to break it up potentially. But you know, I would be careful about trying to reduce it.
yeah, I agree. I would expect that with you being on full-time, Leah, we'll have more ideas, right?
Yeah.
And if that budget for other contracted services is the budget that we can use the resource to test it out, right, quickly or something like that, you know, within the fiscal year, I would say at the minimum, keep it at what it is, right? Mike, is my thought. Unless, you know, we certain about the possibility that we can make a great impact on some consultant help with the one-stop grant, either to produce like learning outcome, right? Or we know how to align on a timeline that we can make sure that, you know, those contracted services can come in and really push the grant forward a little bit. I say we budget for that. But I have never dealt with a contracted situation helping with the grant before. Nor need to write a grant myself. So totally rely on you, Leah, maybe to say, you know, I think there would be the possibility we need that, and we can ask for it. But at the minimum, I will keep it the same because of the anticipation of more activity we can do.
Okay. So you just want to have that sort of built in as a buffer, at least for the time being, until we kind of reevaluate and see where we're at after
Right.
the position goes full-time.
Yeah.
That seems, I mean, that seems fair. I mean, hopefully nobody's going to gasp when they see the budget ask along with the salary, but you know, I would say on the office supplies, I have spent a little bit, but again, it's only maybe been just over $100 to get mainly report covers, because I'm constantly having to put together information for people. And we get that through WB Mason. The town has an account. And then once I order the supplies, we get the invoice sometime after the fact, and I put it through as a payable to the accounting department, and they send that off. We could potentially reduce that a little bit. because I don't know that we have ever fully spent the amount of money that we've allocated for office supplies. You know, again, I'm pretty sparing. I haven't ever really gone too crazy. And in other budget years, you can see that they spent $0 on office supplies. So even more of an austerity budget.
Okay,
Um,
what was our, they sent, you know, max was 540. What is our projected budget from?
Let me go back.
Office supplies?
I think it was allocated at $400 total. And again, I don't think we've ever spent that.
And I'll send their thank you letter, this.
Okay,
Again, it's coming in from them as blank and they're leaving it up to us to populate it based on previous year expenditures
okay.
and sort of the average need in each category.
But once again, you might get a little bit busier. I don't want to have you having to pay for stuff out of your own pocket, you know, like if you want to do stuff. So I don't think $100 here or there in that is going to make significant difference, but.
I mean, I would say between other office supplies and the downtown beautification, those are the two areas that we never seem to completely spend down the allocated amount. And in
What
previous
going to
years,
the downtown beautification remind me? Yeah.
Marika had implemented the planters outside of the Southborough House of Pizza. There's two down there. They're large. Now I did have to do a little bit of detective work because there's 4 other planters that are smaller that are outside of the Knights of Columbus and the barber shop on that side of the crosswalk.
Yeah.
And then going over to Morrow's. I don't know who those belong to, but they got dead plants in them.
Hmm.
And I don't want anybody to think that those are ours.
That's our
we-
beautification effort. Dead plants.
And so they're deader than a doornail. They're brown and crispy as all get out. And so I'm still trying to figure out who those planters belong to. And I'm going to the Southborough Gardeners. They have a meeting tomorrow at the Pilgrim Congregational Church right next to the townhouse. And so I'm gonna talk to them and see what they know about it. And, you know, if we wanted, once we find out who has ownership of the planters, if we want to take a little bit of money out of our allocation for this year's budget, FY25, to replace the plantings, you know, and then we can find out if the gardeners are willing to maintain those. So mainly they have to be watered. And if no one waters them, you know, you're gonna get exactly what's down there right now. So that's typically been a $500 allocation for downtown beautification. I think we reduced it down to 400 this last year because the receipts that we've gotten from the gardeners have always come in under that amount to change out the seasonal plantings and the planters that Marika introduced downtown.
Okay, thank you.
Now the
And
in-state
then
travel. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and then the contracted services includes the planetization, and so we're all in favor, I assume, of going forward with that for another year, right? For the training
think
software.
I'm a little disappointed that, you know, probably half of the people that have a subscription haven't activated it yet. So I would not recommend it. If people are not going to take advantage of this resource, the resource is going away. It's not value added if people don't use it.
Yeah, I think I mean, for me, I mean, I would want to do it for one more year and try to advertise it a little, try to advertise it a little bit more.
Well, what we can do is I can talk to my rep and we can just get the price point reduced if we just need a fewer number of subscriptions.
Sure.
I mean, if we want to keep it only for the EDC, we can do that. Now, of course, the price point went down the more subscribers
right.
that we had from year to year. But I still don't think it's gonna be that outrageous if the EDC wanted to maintain it for their purposes.
What did
And
we
so
pay
I don't
last
want to pick
year?
on anybody, but currently, like I said, we've only got about half of the people who've activated the subscription. And as to how much mileage they're getting out of it, I would just have to check in with each individual and ask.
Leah, we came like under 3,000 for that subscription last year, or something like that. We approved something like that.
Yeah, it was, I want to say it was like 2237.
Okay.
It was not to exceed, actually, no, I'm stand corrected. It was just under the 3,000 because now that I recall, we did that budget meeting in June
Mhm.
or no, May. And we had to spend down the last little bit that we had. And since, we were losing Rob and Mike, I thought it was important we have some training resources available. And so you guys voted that in May for a not to exceed $3,000. And it came in at just under that. It was like, 2,900 and some change. And like I said, if we're only maintaining 4 or 5 subscriptions or maybe 6 subscriptions, we're probably going to be looking at, if we're not halving that, we're gonna be at a substantially lower number. So I can talk to my rep about what that would look like.
Okay, so it looks like 2,982 is what you had it in the tab.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it is a waste if not the majority are using it. So if we can have that amount, that's great. Even
Well, and
keeping,
if it's, I think it's fabulous. I've taken a lot of stuff on there and most of the courses are only an hour on average. And there is something on there for everybody. And
then yeah, I mean,
because
you're
this
getting
is,
your money's worth right there. So I don't think you should get
Sure.
rid of it then.
yeah, I mean, if you feel like it's value added for us, then fabulous. I'm glad that you are finding that a useful resource. And it may be that, I know Vanessa had wanted to confer at some point about maybe putting together a list of some of these courses for some of the other boards and committees. Because, you don't go into serving on a board and committee knowing everything there is to know. There's this pretty steep learning curve. And so I think it's only fair that you invest some resources and make those available to citizen volunteers,
okay, good. So, yeah, if you could,
The training resources is one of the selling points for recruiting new member of EDC and other board and committee and stuff like that.
mhm. All right, can we knock this budget out here since we proposed some numbers and agreed to it? And-
Well, I mean, let me just sort of try to address what Coy just asked. Are we using any of our budget for recruitment? I mean, that's a good question. I don't
Oh,
know.
I thought he said that the
any-
training was a recruiting.
Well, but training is one of it, but then
Yeah, training he said
bigger
was a good
question is,
recruiting.
if we're
point.
thinking about Leah, you want full-time recruiting new member and stuff like that, training is one of the benefits that we can advertise, right? You want to learn more about the town, you want to learn more about, planning,
The issues,
knowledge
yeah.
overall, the issue and stuff like that, right? Available subscription on Planetism is available for you. Make it comfortable for people to join a group, sort of.
Well, and just so you know, we had one extra subscription set aside for that purpose.
Yeah.
So, and I am the administrator of the subscription, and so I can giveth and taketh away as needed. If I talk to some of these folks that haven't activated after so many months and they just don't think they're going to use it, I can reassign it.
Okay. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking about next year, beyond the full-time position that Leah, you sign on, I'm thinking about recruiting at the same time. But beyond the fact that we have to spend more time to be on the committee and, looking at material and stuff like that, what are some of the benefits that we can bring to the local resident in town when they join, right? And one of the aspects that we can look at these, people are curious, right? Curiosity, thirst for knowledge, right? When you serve on a committee, what sort of lesson you can learn, right, from being involved, right? And one of the way to actually make the conversation is, training, right, available to you, right? So you can actually learn what's going on in the community, in the town, in the state, right? In a very constructed, educational way for you to be involved. I think that could be one of the recruiting tools. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
swap out your Netflix for a planetizm course. It's time well spent.
That would be hard, but yes, good suggestion.
Are you flying out of an airport and you need some time to kill? You can log in on your phone.
Absolutely.
I mean, I just think a lot of people aren't trained into or habituated to using it. But like I said, there's over 300 courses on there, and it's only limited by your own time and interest.
If it was YouTube, people would use it a lot more probably. Because they're on all the time.
There's absolutely a lot of great material on there. And the thing that you can say about it is that it's the same exact training that folks who are with the American Planning Association, they have their American Institute of Certified Planner designation, as well as architects through the American Institute of Architects, AIA. They use Planetizm as an ongoing training platform for their continuing education credits. So, it really is kind of an industry standard. And so they're going to get good current information about what's going on in the built environment, anything relative to planning and the built environment, you're going to find it on there. So, that kind of brings me to the CPTC thing, the Citizen Planner Training Collaborative. I will let you know that they're going to have a couple of their classes in December. And I think there were a few of those that I had recommended to you previously, and I can send the dates and the actual course title to you via email in case any of you are interested. But that's going to fall under, that's fairly nominal. I think those are like $35 a pop with CPTC. But those are very specific to Massachusetts, like the zoning code or the zoning act, introduction to the zoning act. I would recommend that one. And there may be one other that might also be good to take with CPTC. But that's completely up to you. It's optional. It's not perfunctory by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that I want to make sure that you guys know about these opportunities. And again, the Mass Municipal Association, the MMA, also has a lot of free webinars and training available. And I can reshare that website if you all need it. I know I've sent it to you previously, but if you want it again, just to remind you of what's out there.
I like what you say, Prue, like people come.
So the in-state travel, I just want to say about that. That's going to be hard to reduce because I like to go to the MMA annual meeting, and that's usually in January every year. And I want to say that that's $295 just to go to that for the weekend. But it's also very content rich, and I would hate to miss it. And so I would have a hard time recommending reducing the in-state travel because it's mainly the MMA. CPTC does their annual meeting. That's $95 at Holy Cross, usually in the spring. And then again, this DLS MARPA conference, the State Municipal Partnership meeting at Holy Cross in October, that was only $20, but absolutely worth going to. And then, you know, we occasionally might want to go to a chamber event with Karen Chapman. And even though we're members, there's usually a nominal charge in addition to that to go to a lot of the chamber events. So, you know, the in-state travel, the only two categories that I could see reducing slightly would be the other office supplies and downtown beautification, but I'm kind of with you all. I would probably try to keep the other figures consistent with previous years. And then dues and memberships, you know, we already went over that and it's on tab. And that just kind of is what it is. So that might be a little bit tough to reduce that as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to knock 100 or 200 off, I don't know, the downtown beautification or the office supplies, that's good, I guess.
So maybe we put that down to what, 300?
Sure.
And I would say on the office supplies, maybe let's kick that down to what, 400? We have it 500 currently, I believe.
Yep,
Yeah, if you're
sounds fine.
comfortable,
And
with that.
this is really this 53,800. These are the numbering categories assigned by accounting when I have to put these in as payables. It's the way they're coded. But the other contracted services, our software falls under that. So that total amount for that is 10,000. Okay. And then printing, do we want to just keep that at the 5?
I think so, because you're going to want to do the marketing.
Okay. And then the in-state travel, I think we had that at 400. Dues and memberships. Let me look at the tab and see exactly what that is.
It's like 9. Yeah.
Yeah. We currently got this figure for this year. This is projected. So I don't know. We could just make that 1,100.
Okay.
And this really is just the total of these categories, this line right here. So we don't
What are you going
need
to do for other contracted?
on the other charges and expenses.
No, like the third one down. Other.
This is just the
contracted
sum
services.
total. This one?
The one that's blank.
Again, that's
under.
the soft, well, yeah, but that's the software. And
Oh.
we're just saying that under this category, you see it's
It's the same account.
53,800.
Oh,
It's the
Yeah,
same
same account.
I
category.
missed that. Okay, we don't need
We're
to put a
just
number. Got it.
allocating a flat 10,000 and then the
Okay,
software
perfect.
comes out of that. And without having to go in and project that, because I don't know if I can reduce, you know, get the constant contact type email platform, I can get that cheaper. So I just don't want to enter in a software amount until I can adjust
Oh, no,
that
that's fine.
and get it as low as possible based on what we need. So that's why that's blank. So let me go here. And then we're going to just change the formula.
And you going to present these number too?
I'm going to have to go in and talk to accounting and
Account. Okay.
possibly the treasurer, Brian Ballantyne. And
Okay.
if there's anything we need to adjust, I'll let you guys know. And, you know, we could kind of do the same thing that we did in May when we just had to have that focused budget session. If anything needs to be adjusted between now and when this is due. But this gives us a good sort of baseline to go in with. And again, we still have to figure out what personnel arrives at for the actual full-time coordinator position salary. And so that's also to be determined. So I'll let you guys know for sure. The only thing I might do Okay, so then that's the figure, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Más or menos, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of hoping it'll be a little bit less, but
All right, looks good. We are
do you want
over.
to
We are.
tentatively?
We're over time. So what do we need to do to wrap this up today?
Well, do you want to go ahead and make a motion to tentatively approve the budget at this amount, minus any changes between now and the due date?
Sure.
Someone just needs to make a motion. And again, kind of put that caveat in there because some of the figures might adjust slightly.
So I make a motion to approve the budget. We have the total on line 13 for FY 2026 of 12,700, and the pending total will be with the salaries that we don't know yet. So that's we'll just at the moment it looks like 74,934, but that'll be to be determined.
Okay, a second.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, excellent. All right, now what else do we got? Anything? Oh, the EDC tracker.
No, I think we pushed that to in the priorities. to
Yeah,
next meeting.
honestly, you guys, there's been so much between the last time I saw you, back, just after town meeting and now. I hadn't even been able to go in and update the tracker. But I pledged to do that and send it to you this next week with some updated
Mhm.
action items. And we can just pick that up at the next meeting if that's
Yep.
okay. Okay,
Sure.
and I'll make sure
Fine.
I hyperlink so that anything that's available that's I've got on the shared folder, you can just click on it from the spreadsheet and it'll take you right to it for your review. The charter website and priorities, I think we talked about at the last meeting that we would be well advised to schedule a working meeting to take that on.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if you all have any bandwidth, you want to do that maybe sometime in December, or we could punt it into January. But we could schedule a working meeting rather than just the regular EDC meeting to take that on.
Yeah, sooner. I mean, I think sooner rather than later, for sure. For the priorities.
Okay,
The
so do
EDC
you want
tracker, you mean?
to?
The priority, okay.
Yeah, the tracker she's going to update, but
Yeah.
so the priorities. I mean, we need to get aligned going into the next year. So, yeah.
So
if
why
you
don't
could-
we do the scheduling poll, but we plan on, if we meet in December, we make that a working meeting
Okay,
to tackle that. Would that be okay?
Yep. Yeah, that's good.
that sounds good.
Okay, let me just double check and make sure that we didn't have anybody on that wanted to publicly comment. I had to switch out of my Zoom screen. I don't see anybody else. Claire, did you want to add anything? I think we lost her. So with that said, let's look at the time and have someone make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:09 p.m.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:09 p.m. Got a second?
I second.
All
Have
Good
a-
night.
All right.
Thanks, Claire. Thank you. Okay, so we had a motion by Michael Nordstrom, seconded by Karen. Let's get a roll call of ayes.
Aye, Michael
Aye.
Nordstrom.
Hi, Karen Ingram.
Hi,
Okay.
Colin. Yeah.
We are adjourned, and I will do as we've done the last several months and send you a scheduling poll for the following meeting, a working meeting.
Oh, awesome. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye, you all.
Thank you all. Have a good
Bye.
night. All right, bye-bye.